It's in the middle. We'll have to fill in what we're missing. So we shall start on page Kuf Menvov, towards the bottom of the page, about 10 lines up. Kaylim Datzilus. 9 times the word Kaylim Datzilus.
Kaylim?
Kaylim Datzilus. It's exactly 9 lines from the bottom.
Okay.
All right, let's introduce what we're dealing with here. You already know, in general, that there are two types of oil. Oil means the identification of a presence of an etzem. There's oil makif and oil pnimi. In general, oil makif means all encompassing. Is simply a statement that the etzem is present. And by its presence, it has the effect of there being oil, there being something of great significance around. It does not then define any particulars that are contained within this all-encompassing principle. This is called oyer makif. And then there is oyer pnimi. Oyer pnimi, pnimi means internalized. And the mode of the activity, of the function of the oyer pnimi is that it imbues itself internally to whatever is able to accommodate it, and it becomes part of it. The simple illustration of these two presences, so these two modes of revealing, of presenting the presence of the etzem, is chokhmah and bina, or sight. Sight enables, shows itself. The thing that is being shown to you, that you see, on the one hand you see its reality. On the other hand, you have no contact and you have no knowledge at all of what it is about. There is no internal interaction between the seer and that which he sees. One can see something that he cannot at all surmise and have a relationship to. This is one way of explaining the name for a makif. Something of you see it, you recognize it, you definitely recognize that there's something there, but there is no way that you can identify what it is. And it itself remains aloof. That's called makif. And then there is oy pnimi. Pnimi is that which which is presented in a totally different manner, in an active manner and in a determinant manner of identifying exactly what the message is. So, what we are engaging right now in the Maimer is the principle of the creation. The creation is a godly creation. It's of a godly force, godly koyach. It is definitely a superworldly phenomenon. But within that itself, there are two levels, the two aspects. In general, just to introduce this, because we're going very deeply into this, there's the initial creation. That which gives the world an absolute presence. It's called yesh. A presence that is undeniable. A presence that appears to stand on its own completely. A reality of existence. This reality of existence is not of itself, it's because it was permitted, it was given that quality, that presence. This is a divine creation of that caliber. This kind of creation is rooted, and the force behind
to remain
it,
on this call, press 1.
and the force behind it is
That's Prem's phone.
oh yeah.
That's his phone. Here's your phone.
Oh, this is my sorry.
I think it hung up in the meantime.
Hung
but
up.
it's still
Okay,
there.
fine. I'm sorry, you're right with this. And I didn't do anything, I don't think.
Okay.
All right. So this is what's called the force behind this type of creation is called makif, where it creates a yesh, which means a presence that is totally independent of anything, a true presence of its own. That's called Havas HaYesh. And the Rebbe explains that this Havas HaYesh can only come from the koyach or makif. Because if it were from oil pnimi, internalized oil, meaning that the oil is allowing itself to be fully understood, and it expresses itself also in an understandable manner. So that which is created from that is in proximity to the oil that creates it. It's not a yesh, an independent presence. Just as we explain all the time that seichel can explain, no matter what you create with seichel, it always makes sense all the way up to the seichel itself. The source of what you create remains in effect after it is created. So it's not a yesh, a true, an entity that exists on its own. Okay. This is exactly what we're discussing right now, that Moy Pnimi cannot be a creation, what's called yesh. And we're out in 9 lines from the bottom. Kaylim Datzilus. As an example for that, we give Kaylim Datzilus. Kaylim Datzilus means that the oil of Atzilus is being contained within a keli. So you would think that it would appear that a keli means that it has already a determinate form, just as kaylim that we always say, a keli, a cup that contains water, that holds water, is a keli for the water. So, as we pointed out many times, the cup, despite that it is a tangible entity, and it can stand, so to speak, on its own, it has a clear design as to what its function is. It is not an entity unto itself. In Atzilus, so kaylim d'Atzilus, means in Atzilus there are 10 spheres, and Atzilus is the first level that's called world in the full sense of the word, because the 10 spheres are contained in kaylim. Each sphere is identified individually within a kaylim, within a presentable manner. Not just oir, eleki, but something which is determinate. It's called kaylim d'Atzilus. So now we're going to kaylim d'Atzilus. As in the case of kaylim d'Atzilus, what the Rebbe is going to now show that if the creation is pnimi, it can never become an independent unit.
Shlomo, you hear us now? Yeah, he's with us now. The conference had issues. The video conference, so he called in there.
Well, the conference had issues?
That was all that feedback, and I couldn't get the audio to resolve.
Can't say they have any issues. Okay.
Technology, what you going to do?
No, not this.
That accepts the call. That stop.
Yeah,
Shlomo, you hear us?
Hello?
You hear us now?
I called in on the video. There's no sound.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
What is that?
The video had no sound. The video had an issue.
Okay. All right. So so you're on the phone. Okay, fine.
And if you mute your phone, that would be better. Thanks.
So in Atzilus there are 10 spheres, starting from Chokhmah on down. And these 10 spheres are not pure oil Chokhmah or Bina, but they're contained in kaylim. There's a kaylim de Chokhmah, Kliya Chokhmah, Kliya Chokhmah, Kliya Bina, and so forth. And now we're going to identify the difference between the oil and the kaylim in Atzilus. And ultimately, to determine the difference between that and the creation of yesh yayin. Kaylim Atzilus, shehizavusun hu min ha'ir. The kaylim Atzilus shehizavusun that came to be, they come into being min ha'ir, from the very oil itself. The oil ha-chokhmah is the source and the cause for the kayla ha-chokhmah. Because we say them is abuz ha'oir nasu ha'keli. Because when the oil becomes more determinant, his abuz means more coarse, more tangible. From this come to be the keli, which means that the keli is actually the result of oil on a more determinant and definitive manner.
Is this being presented in contrast to the creation of world?
That's right. In contrast of creation, what's called yesh yayin. Commission is very. So what do we see there? In the middle of the next line. Harein is habu ha-keli. So keli that came to be from this hisabus ha'oir, because that the creation of the kaylim is in a natural process. The oir had identified itself more and more until it became a keli. So then is haba kaylim shem be'erach oir. So the kaylim are be'erach, are in proximity to the oir. Didn't create something novel, something that is completely in a different category. It's not a categorical difference. And thus likewise, if the creation of the world were to be made from the oipanimi, from the internalized oir, hainu, which would mean, which oir would that be in terms of the world determination? Me'oir ha'atzilus, from the oir of atzilus. Because there is the oil that's hard in Atzilus, oil ha-keser, oil makif. It's not pnimi. Atzilus is an oil pnimi. Atzilus is the oil that does allow itself to be contained in kaylim. That's called oil pnimi. So if the worlds were created altogether from oil pnimi, from the oil of Atzilus, hoyu ha'oilomez madreger haruchnis, then the worlds would be in a spiritual madrega, in a level. The world himself would be in oil level. Loi b'pchinas yesh, not in the category of yesh. Now we need to elaborate on this a bit. The oilers, the kaylim, the world would have been b'madrega ruchnis, loy b'pchinas yesh, not in the category of yesh. What is the difference between these two states, madrega ruchnis or b'pchinas yesh? So as we already discussed, we said, for example, that there is sight, which is an oir type of experience, where you see, and you don't necessarily know what you see. There is no determinant entity that is the prerequisite for sight. On the contrary, sight is not even identifying what it sees. It sees what there is to see. It's not determinate, it's not dependent on recognizing what it sees. There is not, let me see if I can produce this and see if we can follow this sentence. There is not a distinction between that which you see and the seer. There is not a two-step process. The entity that you see, that is to see, and then it comes to you to see it. Like in the case of touch, for example. You touch something, so the entity is there, whatever it is. Then when you touch, there is that part of it that you can feel by touch. It's a completely different world. And when you touch it, that's when it becomes real. When you don't touch it, it's not there. In sight, there isn't that transition. You see exactly what there is to see. You see a table, not because of the form of a table. but because there is something to be seen that's visible. And not because the table exists in a certain environment. It's nothing to do with that. That's what's visible, that's what you see. That's in the ruchnius. The relationship there is not through a yesh, from one yesh to another yesh. It's not a message from one source to another source.
Very direct.
It's a one thing. It's a complete union.
Seamless. No.
Seamless. A complete union.
And no process, no steps.
No process whatsoever. This is ruchnius. You see that which is visible, not because you see it, not because I'm showing it to you. So if the creation would come from oipnimi, then the world would be the world would have all the qualities of world that contains the world, but it'd be a ruchnisiki thing. There would be only the creator, so to speak, no creation, no created.
Okay, mute your phone, Moshe.
What?
Keep your phone on mute. It's Moshe's phone.
I see it, yeah.
Sorry, that last point, that Ruchni implies this direct.
Ruchni means it's indirect. Because oipnimi does not have the capability of creating something completely distant and distinct of itself.
And this or of a kaylim is always or pnimi.
Right, kaylim is pnimi. So let's continue a little bit inside. We'll have to rechew it over again. Ubigdei, that's a third line from the bottom. Ubigdei, she's haba mitzius yesh. More than that, a mitzius a yesh, a presence of a yesh. Again, what's yesh? Yesh means something that is present, not by virtue of its message, but by virtue of its presence. Trying to put it into concrete terms. A table in the room. A table has a purpose, has a means, a significance. It's thin in the room because it serves a certain aspect in the room. Now, when you do not need the table, you're not in the middle of a meal, when you're not in the middle of learning, you don't need a table at all. Does the table vanish? Does the table cease to be? No. What is it doing then? The answer is, it's a yesh. It is an independent presence. Whether it serves a purpose or not, it is there. This means b'chinas yesh. When it is b'chinas ruchnis, if a table is now serving to hold your space for him or to eat and so forth, then it is not the yesh, it is the function of the table. But when it's standing there barren and it's not providing any function, then it's there also, and then that's when you see its power. It's a full expression of power. I'm here, regardless of whether you need me or not. That's my yesh. In order to create b'chinas yesh, it has to come from an oil that is of a supreme quality. It's called oil makif. Oil makif means that it creates something and you are oblivious to the source of for the power that created you. If the source, the power that created you is pnimi, then it cannot be yesh. There's a complete correlation between the creator and the created. But when it's a makif, but the creator is in a higher, in a distant and a higher level, then the created becomes an entity that does not recognize where it's coming from. This is called B'chinas Yesh. I'd like to elaborate on it even more because we have to go much more deeper into this. Going back to our table, we said many times, a table in the room, it has a function. Dining room or living room or study room, whatever it is, it has a definitive function. Then there is another level, another category in this table. Like we said before, if you enter a dining room and there is a table there, you recognize that this table is there because this is a dining room. You're not ready to eat now. You don't need the table now but it tells you a completely different truth about this room. And it tells you another truth. This is a lived-in home of human beings. Now we're talking about a completely different level of oyer. There's a human being living here. He's not now doing anything. He doesn't need the table functionally, practically, but it represents a living home. This is really a makif phenomenon. This makif phenomenon creates a yesh. There's an entity that is there. You can't tell why is it here now. What's the point of it? It's there because there's some kind of a truth about its presence. The oil makif can create this kind of a yesh, this kind of a truth. I've said many times, a home is not just a place for a person to sleep and eat. A home is something that gives a person a place in the world. Odom shein lebayis eni odom. Home is really a makif aspect of the human being. A person needs a home regardless of whether he's eating or whether he needs it practically. To the extent that the Gemara said, Odom shein lebayis eni odom. This is a makif quality. And that creates a true entity, a true presence. This is a home that's fully furnished and you hardly use it. But that's the way it should be. Because it identifies a real presence in the world for this person. A yesh.
We didn't use the word of how that happens, right? Or pnimi dehavus or naseh kaylim. Sort of thickening, this word was used by
makif it happens because it wants to do it. Rotzen. We have to talk about rotzen. One of these days we'll try to dig in and try to get us have a so to speak a perception of what is meant by rotzen. Rotzen is an all-powerful, all-significant element in every human being. Okay, this is not the time for that.
As if to say by ratzon, I mean yesh or makif manifests a yesh. Yes.
Rotzen to create a yesh.
Very well. I didn't hear that.
Oh, no,
I
no.
didn't hear what you said.
Rotzen can create a yesh.
Okay.
Maybe we'll go into this a little bit. I mentioned Odom Shein Bayis Ene Odom. To the extent any Odom, now he has a house. But the house, he has a place in the world, there's nothing happening in this house. Does he then become an Odom just because he has a house, a home? The answer is yes. Because this home is a statement that his presence in the world is independent of his function. His presence and the presence in the world is a statement that he is here for real.
And the house bears witness to that more than his guf.
That's right. His guf, this is his chayas.
Mm.
His guf is not in the world. His guf is in himself.
Mm.
But this is a place in the world.
Mm.
And as we said many times, where does he have that license, that capability to own a piece in the world? There's a direct command from the creator of the world, from God himself. God says, this is your world, to conquer it. If not for that, we would not have that capability. This is why a human being can own part of the world and an animal cannot. We once discussed, somebody might mention, but the lion has its turf. Mm. It's not the same thing at all.
Mm. Mm. And we came into this indicating how this makif by means of ratzon becomes a yesh, namely the house. Yeah.
Because it creates a yesh. Makif creates a yesh.
Yeah. And ratzon is kind of the key.
Right. Ratzon is the pshat hazeh. Maybe we can define it. Ratzon means I am in the world because I want to be there. And I have a real connection to it. I have a real understanding of what its significance is.
You might think yesh is being there without wanting to be there. The stone.
No. The ratzon is the power that creates the yesh.
Mm.
Where is what's ratzon? Ratzon means this is my personal determination. This is what I want. And that creates a yesh, creates the world for me. If I didn't have this ratzon, I would not have a home.
Mm.
I've said many times, a person can live a lifetime in the hotel rooms, like Howard Hughes did.
Mm.
But he was not the man in the world. He didn't really have a stake in the world.
Never at home.
He was in his own body, in his own skin. There was no real estate in his life. There was all expendable aspect. An unlimited amount of expendable of millions of dollars, but nothing real. Okay.